my family's experience with Mrs. Lorraine Warren. So, they lived in Connecticut, and it's where I grew up. This happened when I was like 14, it was either right after Ed Warren passed away or not too long after. Me and my dad were staying at my aunt's house one night. It was a two-family house, so her and my uncle, as well as my cousin, her husband and their 2 children all lived there. It was a new house they had just built and moved into a couple months back. I found this part out later. Leading up to that night, my aunt was having crazy dreams where a little boy would appear in her dreams every night, or so she thought they were dreams, and lead her out of bed. My aunt said the outside of the house was a very bright light that shone through the windows to the point where she couldn't see anything outside, and the little boy would try to lead her outside. My aunt would always be found in the morning by my uncle around the house, passed out on the bathroom floor, living room, even the garage one time. They just assumed my aunt was sleepwalking. So anyway, that night, at about 2 a.m. or so, everyone hears this loud screaming coming from the upstairs living room. Me, my dad, my aunt and uncle all wake up and run upstairs because it sounded like someone was hurt. We get up there and my cousin and her husband are in the living room, and my cousin's son, who was about 2 years younger than me, was sitting in a rocking chair. His back was to us, but my cousin and husband were freaking out. So, my dad and uncle walked over to my cousin and went to see what was wrong. My uncle touched his shoulder and he turned his head around and it was bright red, his eyes were bloodshot, and his skin was starting to turn this weird grayish color. When they tried asking him what was wrong, he started speaking in Latin and was rocking in chair back and forth. Now he was known as kind of a prankster. So, my uncle and my cousin's husband, thinking he's playing around, yelled at him to stop and went to grab him out of the chair. When they touched him that time, he let out a loud scream again in Latin and his eyes started to roll in the back of his head. We are all freaking out at this point, not knowing what to do. My cousin went and got a glass of water thinking maybe he's sleepwalking and threw it on him, and he just laughed in this deep voice. My aunt was a pretty holy woman. She would keep crosses and angel statues and even holy water in the house, so she ran back downstairs to get the holy water because at this point, we realized something weird was going on. My dad and my uncle grabbed him out of the chair. He was kicking and trying to fight them the whole time, and held him on the floor. My aunt brings over the holy water, and rubs it on her hands. My cousin lifts up his shirt while he's being held down and my aunt places her hand on his back. It literally burned him. It left a burn mark the exact size of her hand on his back. He screamed and screamed for a couple seconds before he ended up passing out. I'm just standing there the whole time absolutely terrified, not moving, just watching this all happen. So, he's passed out, and not knowing what to do, they call the police. It's probably around 3 a.m. at this point. So, the police come with paramedics and talk to us all, and the meds check out my second cousin to see if he's okay. He ended up waking up and they said he was fine, save the burn mark on his back. Not knowing what to do, the police recommended that they give Mrs. Warren a call since she was a famous paranormal investigator and lived right in CT. So, nobody ends up going to bed at all and me and my dad leave in the later morning. Now this next part I wasn't there for. About a week later my aunt gives Mrs. Warren a call, tells her what happened and invites her to the house. Apparently, Lorraine knew what the house was about before she even stepped foot in there. Apparently the newly built house was built on land that housed some kind of portal to the other dimension. The little boy in my aunt's dream was trying to lead my aunt outside through the portal, because if a human entered the portal, it would be open enough for demons to constantly go through. Apparently, one got through and was able to possess my second cousin because he wasn't strong enough to fight it. Well, Lorraine ends up doing this whole seance and cleansing of the house to get rid of it all and close it permanently. They ended up living in that house for about another 8 years without any problems ever again before selling it and moving out of state. I never stayed over there again. To this day that night still haunts me. My father, who drowned when I was a kid, hanged himself 20 years later on a riverbank. I'm not sure where to post this, but after all these years, this whole event still feels paranormal. I don't know what to make of it, so sharing for any perspective or feedback. When I was 9 months old my dad drowned in a freak accident. He was helping friends lose a canoe that had got stuck in the river. The undertow snagged him and no one saw him alive again. Found him few days later, couple miles down the river. 20 years later, I am camping with my girlfriend, at the time, now ex, and my best bro and his GF. It's a beautiful summer night in Pacific NW, and it was about 9:30 p.m., so mostly dark. My bro and hiked a short trip to this rock overhang that had a perfect view of the river. Lit up some cigarette, Sipped on a beer, chatted and took in the view. 2 minutes in, and this happens. Across the riverbank I see my dad standing there staring at me. I don't remember knowing him, but I do have an image in mind from pictures. He looked exactly like my dad at the time he died. I hit my friend and ask him if he's seeing this scene, but he doesn't. Then a sort of spotlight blasts my dad and he immediately breaks the stare and walks to his left about 20 feet down the river, and a little back into the trees. He slowly starts pulling some tools and a rope out of a cashmere bag. At this point I am pale and shaking, my friend worried because I'm staring into the dark and not responding. But wow, what I was seeing. The whole other side of riverbank was now a stage, lit up, and my dad was working on something with his back to me. He finally turns around and has a noose in his hands. He throws it over a tree branch and proceeds to slip it around his neck and, saying nothing, hangs himself to death while staring at me. We had odd experiences for the rest of the night, but nothing like that. I'm now 41 and still haven't integrated this experience. It really messed me up, and I can't help but wonder, did he really drown, or is that what I was told? I had numerous close calls with suicide as young adult but never by hanging. Was my dad telling me a hidden truth? Was that someone or something else? It's been a strange one. Please like our video and subscribe to our channel, so you won't miss out any of our future videos. Thank you for your support. This is Reddit Joe Channel, your everyday Reddit.